Okay, Chapter 2 of Notes from Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I would now like to tell you, gentlemen, whether you do or do not wish to hear it, why I never managed to become even an insect. I'll tell you solemnly that I wanted many times to become an insect, but I was not deemed worthy even of that. I swear to you, gentlemen, that to be overly consciousness is a sickness, a real, full-blown sickness. For man's everyday use, ordinary human consciousness would be more than enough. That is, a half, a quarter of the portion that falls to the lot of a developed man in our unfortunate 19th century, who, on top of that, has the added misfortune of residing in Petersburg, the most abstract and intentional city on the entire globe. Open parentheses. Cities can be intentional or unintentional. Close parentheses. As much consciousness, for example, as that by which all so-called ingenious people and active figures live would be quite enough. I'll bet you think I'm writing all this out of swagger, to be witty at the expense of active figures, and swagger of a bad tone besides, rattling my saber like my officer. But gentlemen, who can take pride in his sickness and swagger about them besides? Though what am I saying? Everyone does it. It's their sickness that everyone takes pride in, and I perhaps more than anyone. Let us not argue. My objection was absurd. But all the same, I am firmly convinced that not only too much consciousness, but even any consciousness at all, is a sickness. I stand upon it. But let us also leave that for a moment. Tell me this. Why was it that, as if by design, in those same very moments when I was most capable of being conscious of all the refinements, of everything beautiful and lofty, as we once used to say, it happened that instead of being conscious, I did such unseemly deeds, such deeds as, well, in short, as everyone does, perhaps which with me occurred, as if by design, precisely when I was most conscious that I ought not to be doing them at all. The more conscious I was in the good of all this, beautiful and lofty, the deeper I kept sinking into my mire, and the more capable I was of getting completely stuck in it. But the main feature was that this was all in me, not as if by chance, but as if it had to be so, as if it were my most normal condition, and in no way a sickness or a blight, so that finally I lost any wish to struggle against this blight. I ended up almost believing, and maybe indeed believing, that this perhaps was my normal condition. But at first, in the beginning, how much torment I endured in this struggle. I did not believe that such things happened to others, and therefore kept it to myself all my life as a secret. I was ashamed. Maybe I'm ashamed even now. It reached the point with me where I would feel some secret, abnormal, mean little pleasure in returning to my corner on some most nasty Petersburg night, and being highly conscious of having once again done a nasty thing that day, and again that had been done could in no way be undone, and I would gnaw at myself with my teeth, inwardly, secretly, tear and suck at myself until the bitterness finally turned into some shameful, accursed sweetness, and finally into a decided, serious pleasure. Yes, a pleasure, a pleasure. I stand upon it. The reason I've begun to speak is that I keep wanting to find out for certain, do other people have such pleasures? I'll explain to you. The pleasure here lay precisely in the too vivid consciousness of one's own humiliation, in feeling that one had reached the ultimate wall, that, bad as it is, it cannot be otherwise, that there is no way out for you, that you will never change into a different person, even if you had enough time and faith left to change yourself into something different, you probably would not wish to change. And even if you did wish it, you would still not do anything, because in fact there is perhaps nothing to change into. And chiefly, and finally, all this occurs according to the normal and basic laws of heightened consciousness and the inertia that follows directly from these laws, and consequently there is not only nothing you can do to change yourself, but there is simply nothing to do at all. So it turns out, for example, as a result of heightened consciousness, right, you're a scoundrel, as if you were a consolation for the scoundrel himself, to feel that he is indeed a scoundrel. But enough. Ugh, I've poured all this out, and what have I explained? How explain this pleasure? But I will explain myself. I will carry through to the end. That is why I took up the pen. I am, for instance, terribly vain. I am as insecure and touchy as a hunchback or a dwarf. Yet there have indeed been moments when, if I had happened to be slapped, I might even have been glad of it. I say it seriously. Surely I'd have managed to discover some sort of pleasure in that as well. The pleasure of despair, of course. But it is in despair that the most burning pleasure occur, especially when one is all too highly conscious of the hopelessness of one's position. And here, with this slap, you'll simply be crushed by the consciousness of what sort of slime you've been reduced to. But chiefly, however you shuffle, it still comes out that I always come out as the first to blame in everything, and what's more offensively, blamelessly to blame according to the laws of nature, so to speak. I'm to blame first because I am more intelligent than everyone around me. Open parentheses. I've always considered myself more intelligent than everyone around me, and would you believe, have even felt slightly ashamed of it. At least I have somehow averted my eyes all my life, and never could look people straight in the face. Close parentheses. I am to blame, finally, because even if there were any magnanimity in me, I would be the one most tormented by the consciousness of its utter futility. For I would surely be able to do nothing with my magnanimity, neither to forgive, because my offender might have hit me according to the laws of nature, and the laws of nature cannot be forgiven, nor to forget, because even though it is the law of nature, it's still offensive. Finally, even if I should want to be altogether unmagnanimous, if, on the contrary, I should wish to take revenge on my offender, I wouldn't be able to take revenge on anyone in any way, because I surely wouldn't dare to do anything even if I could. Why wouldn't I dare? About that, I would like to say a couple of words in particular. All right, that's the end of chapter 2. Very interesting chapter. These are pretty short. That was like 3 pages. Yeah, I think he has an interesting idea about kind of this. We take pride in our suffering and almost have this draw to it based off of our inherent nature as conscious beings. It's interesting. I mostly study Eastern philosophy and religion, but I see lots of ties to kind of these Buddhist ideas of consciousness as a sickness. You know, the nature of suffering, the nature of the self, and the relation between all these things. It's really fun. I'm excited for chapter 3. All right, see you then.